Thank you, everybody, for joining us back here at Logiq's channel. We're sitting here once again with Chief Executive Officer Brent. And Brent, previously, we got to know your origin story a little bit, but today we want to go deeper into the business itself. How are you, and are you ready to get into it?
Oh, very ready. Thanks for having us.
Perfect. Very glad to have you on. So at the end of our last session, when I had asked you, what is the key idea you really want to get across people? You had said that your guys' goal has always been to enable the little guy, and the main focus is small businesses. But can you give me the elevator pitch?
Sure. Okay. Let me just frame this by saying I think from an overall investor perspective, technology companies can be a little bit intimidating with all the buzzwords and acronyms. So at the expense of our more sophisticated viewers, I'll try to keep it very simple because I've personally found over the years that simplicity is best. Okay, so Logiq, the way that we describe ourselves as far as our mission statement is connecting brands to consumers, and brands are big and small. We try to focus on the smaller to medium size brands. And when we say connect them with consumers, the way you really do that is advertising and marketing. The buzzwords in the industry are ad tech and martech, of which we do both. So how do we do that? There's really two parts of our business. The martech side is encompasses what's called lead generation, buying leads, list of people's names, people who have bought certain things before or subscribed to services, and then you do what's called enriching those names, referencing these names with other things that they do, other key attributes, like, for example, like yourself. So, you may have, a couple of mobile devices. Oh, and show up. You may have a laptop. You may have a desktop. Those are devices. You have identifiers there. What you do on those devices, where you shop, websites you visit, news you read, things that you say in close proximity of your phone, products and services you've bought. We enrich those names by the hundreds, by the thousands, and sometimes by the tens of thousands. And we provide those to brands who are looking to sell things to consumers. On the ad tech side, what we do is we enable small to medium-sized businesses to access an advertising exchange or an ad exchange. There's an on-ramp to that here comes that acronym. It's called a DSP, or anyway, I'll leave it at that. So the DSP gives you access to the on-ramp. Demand side platform is what DSP stands for. But in any case, we provide that. Typically, the number one used on-ramp is a company that's publicly traded called The Trade Desk. Trade Desk has a huge valuation. I haven't looked lately, but I think it's probably like 30 billion.
Wow.
And they've been a huge success story. That is the on-ramp, and that is the preferred provider to Amazon and eBay and Target and Walmart. All the big guys use them because their price of entry is about 100 million in advertising dollars per month. So
Wow.
You can see that for many small and medium-sized businesses, it's a little bit prohibitive.
Yeah.
So we've got the same tools, the same type of platform, but we enable the small to medium-sized businesses the same access. We do that with the transparency of pricing, so they know what they're spending. You can mark them up, and generally the markup's 15 to 20%. But if you can help them immediately save money on access into the same ad exchange, and then you can show them the effectiveness of their ad campaigns while saving them money, then they win and you win. So martech, ad tech.
Interesting. Yeah, I would definitely say it is unfortunate how much the scales are tilted towards larger businesses when it comes to a lot of these things. And it sounds like you guys have quite a large market of small to medium-sized businesses you could kind of market yourselves to. So then walk me through then the paths to revenue. How do the deals usually work out with these guys? How do you find them? Talk about margins a little bit more if you can.
Sure, sure. Okay. So let me address the MarTech side first, because that's actually where we have our roots. Although I started the company 9 years ago, our core business now, which we call Data Logic, is MarTech. And so what is that? What is that? Those are lists of names, leads, if you will, of people who are candidates for buying things or services from Brent. So the revenue driver from that perspective has historically been purchasing lists of names or creating our own lists, because we have our own series of websites that people go to looking for things, home improvement. They'll go there to read articles about new roofs or solar installations or walk-in tubs or windows, anything home improvement based. People can be driven to a site. They sign up, they check the box and say, yes, I'm willing to receive marketing. And then they read about things, and then you, in turn, you're able to track them through other websites, behavior, et cetera. And then you can increase the odds of said consumers buying something from the brands that that are purchasing these lists. So one way we've made money is by providing those lists that are highly enriched and increase the effectiveness of a company's ability to sell them something, right? So that's what we've historically done. We've added artificial intelligence to the mix. So it constantly evaluates and learns demographics about a person or a demographic of people that have certain attributes that buy things. Because the obvious way historically to sell stuff to people was, oh gosh, I've got to buy keywords, right? But there's more to it than that, because sometimes the obvious keywords are not the only ones that are effective. There are lesser known ones that only can be mined and then electronically reviewed to look for other attributes that may not be obvious. So then you can end up letting your customer, being the brand, purchase cheaper keywords, or looking for people in a different zip code, or who may drive a different car, or may have other attributes that are not the obvious ones. So they save money, but they have the same effectiveness on the list. So that's the AI component of that. What we've done is refine that over the past 2 years by making additional IP acquisitions. So that's improved margins significantly. Because if the brand, being the customer, if they win, if they're more effective at selling things, not only do they come back, but they're willing to pay a premium. So that's our historical model. Generally, you see profit margins in the low 20s, mid 20s on the high side. We've been showing high 20s, low 30s on that business because the AI components have driven that. When we acquired a business last year called Rebel AI, that brought the ad tech side in. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, here's what's important there. So let's say that you have a small business and you sell certain products. Generally, when you advertise online, being a small business, the obvious candidates, and quite good candidates for that, are going to be Google and Facebook. And they have all kinds of tools because they are Google and Facebook, and it makes it easy for you. You can say, all right, here's my budget. This is what I want to spend. This is what my anticipated results are. These are the types of demographics of people I want to sell to. And it's all very cookie cutter. However, if you want to do programmatic advertising, that's a lot more specific. As I mentioned earlier, you generally have to traffic in very high dollar ad spend to get access to the things that the bigger players are using. So our whole vision was, okay, we're already doing MarTech for people, and these small businesses are somewhere else. They're buying Google and Facebook ads. What if we can give them the same on-ramp to the ad exchanges and show them a level of transparency and effectiveness that they they could get if they were huge and they were using the trade desk.
Hmm.
So what does that do for them? Well, the obvious things are it gives them access that they didn't have before. Okay. It gives them a level of transparency. We also give them access to the data, and we help them review that data and say, okay, your ad campaigns can be more effective if you do this, or if you spend more here instead of there. Okay. Who wins there? They do, and so do we, because the margins on ad tech for us are pretty good. They're about 60 to 70%. So you can see the blend from where we are, being high 20s, low 30s, supplementing that with margins up in the 60-70% range. Your blended rate is up in the 50s.
Yeah.
So that's where it gets exciting.
Yeah, it sounds pretty good, and I'd love to do deeper dive videos on both ad tech and martech into the future. And I am curious, though, turning back to the fact that you guys are a publicly traded company. I'm trying to find more companies similar to you guys. Obviously, you had mentioned Trade Desk and everything, and those are on the large side. But is there anybody else in the same wheelhouse targeting the same companies, so to speak?
It's okay. So let me address the comps real quick. If you look at pure MarTech companies, you'll see Fluent, FLNT, Zeta, ZETA, Media Alpha, MAX, NASDAQ and NYSE listed. If you look at, and I'm sorry, and there are also specialty portals like Angie's List, Porch.com, Select Quote. Those are kind of pure plays, but they're MarTech as well. And then if you look at ad tech, those companies like Trade Desk, Magnite, who else? There's elements of Google, obviously, and then Inuvo. And then I think Viant. Yes. So those are the ones that are publicly traded. So it's easy for investors to do a deeper dive and look at comps. But what you'll see is that the MarTech companies, Mike, have lower valuation metrics than the ad tech. MarTech is usually a fraction of their revenues, whereas ad tech are multiples of revenues. So I think on last check, the average multiple on the MarTech side was about 1 to 0.5x revenues. And then if you look at ad tech, those are multiples anywhere from the low side of about 4x revenues up to a high of 20x revenues. So if you can successfully blend those together, you'll find the multiples much higher than pure MarTech.
Interesting. And so I guess last but not least, now we're 2022 is just kind of flying by right now. But tell me how this year has went for you guys in terms of milestones, what people can expect for the rest of the year that you're able to say.
Yeah. Quick look back. When we started in the MarTech space, it was 2019. That year's revenues were from MarTech were about 8.6 million. 2020, 15.6 million. Last year, roughly 24 million. This year, and this is based around the last conference call we had, I stated that we are comfortable with exiting the year on a $40 to $50 million run rate. So in effect, exiting the year with a double over last year's revenues. And I've gotten a lot of questions about that because Q1 and 2 were lower. I want to address that real quick. We cut out a lot of the smaller customers that we had because in order to pursue larger customer wins, it takes more work. So we've paved the way for some significant wins. And I think if you tie the two together, if you say, okay, how do you get to a $40 or $50 million run rate? Well, you'd have to believe that I said that because we have high confidence in some impending customer wins that would get us there. So yeah,
fair enough. A little bit of teasers for future interviews, Brent. But I think so far you did a great job knocking out an overview. Like you said, it can get a little more into the weeds from here. And if you guys have any questions or want anything fleshed out more, we'll do some deeper dives and we'll dive into anything specific you guys asked for. But we will have more coming. Brent, thank you so much for your time. Any last words for people before we go today?
Have a great week.
Well said, Brent. Thank you for your time and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Mike.